So one of the main downsides of humane relocation is that it doesn't solve the problem at its source. And so what is the problem? The problem is overpopulation. And moving, transferring dogs out of overpopulated or overcrowded areas absolutely saves lives and is absolutely um, a positive activity. But it doesn't solve overpopulation. And to illustrate this, we'll look at BARC, the Houston Animal Shelter, where they had a live release rate in 2011 of 44.6%. Not good. Not good at all. By 2019, they had gotten that up to 86.7%. Which is great, right? I mean, the live release rate is up 42.1%. But here's the thing, intake was up 8%. Okay. So what that says is that BARC took in 8% more animals, and so and increased their live release rate. What that means is the problem was not solved at the source. Okay. What what BARC did, and it was really important for the euthanasia rate at the shelter, but that they transferred tens of thousands of dogs out of their shelter. In fact, 317% more dogs were transferred out of their shelter. And you can see that basically the curve of the line on these charts from the transfers versus the live release rate is pretty similar. So what this illustrates is that at least in Houston, transferring a whole bunch of animals out is great for reducing the euthanasia rate. It's great for increasing the live release rate. These are things that these programs are entirely meant to do. However, intake is up 8%. And so the source of the problem has not been solved. Another major downside to humane relocation is the risk of disease transmission. And what you see here is sort of a roadmap with lots of different stops, which I won't talk about all of them. But this is a roadmap that came out of a working group that I was part of with PACFA, the State Pet Animal Care Facility Act regulatory agency. When we were writing regulations or recommending regulations for disease control in Colorado. And the one thing that really jumped out at even at the PACFA, the head of PACFA, was this idea of during transport, having many of the transporters use the same rest stop and stopover locations, which is to say, I, as a rescue, can do the best job in the world of making sure that the dogs on my transport are healthy. But when I stop over at the same location as 10 other rescues who may not have taken the same steps that I have, I now have exposed my dogs to disease risk that I may not have even thought of because we're stopping at the same locations. So some of you might say, well, what about certificates of veterinary inspection, CVIs? CVIs are required by the USDA. They're required to accompany every animal that crosses state lines. This is a certificate that is based on visual observation only. It doesn't, and so if a dog or any animal doesn't appear to be sick, they'll get a pass and they'll get a CVI. Here's the thing about that as well, is that the vet inspection happens prior to a dog being transported. And so you see all these points of risk that happen after the vet inspection or the CVI is attached to the animal. So again, another soapbox, don't get me on it. CVIs don't do a whole lot of good to control disease. So what are we talking about when we talk about disease and disease transmissions? First, there's parvo, which is a devastating disease, and most puppies, especially who contract parvo, don't make it. These states are some of the largest where parvo originates. Heartworm is another one that I'm sure, you know, as pet owners or people who know pet owners, heartworm um, is pretty prevalent here in Texas, but it's also in some of these other southern states. Lyme disease, just because I had the data, I thought, what the heck, put it in there. I didn't know anything about it, so with it being kind of in the Northeast, I thought that was interesting. And then lastly, year-round flea and tick season is illustrated here. And the importance of that, of course, is the diseases that are transmitted by ticks, and so the risk that entails. Now, sadly, we look at Texas, and other than, you know, it's got the parvo, heartworm, and flea and tick season going against it. Do you notice anything about the states with multiple canine diseases, or at least, you know, they originate mostly in these states? Do you see any similarities between this and the overpopulated states, the most overpopulated states? So what we're talking about is the animals that are being transferred out are being transferred from locations with a high disease risk and into locations that may not have as high a risk.